Hello, everyone. Welcome to part 6 of Klonoa. Technical difficulty, so Derek's not here. We have someone who is, he's been around the channel a little bit. John, was it?
Oh my god. It's Hellfire Commentaries! I'm so excited to be here, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me. A big fan, especially of that John guy.
I
Yeah,
can't
we've
believe
had a little
we
bit of technical
polymorphed
difficulties,
Derek
so-
and John.
Someone used a spell card.
The polymerization.
I know you see.
Combine, no, because that just makes a
I'm
chimera.
enough of a nerd that I know where that joke actually comes from, but I'm not gonna say anything. So
I was making a joke.
Just going to silently nod and say, I know what they're referencing.
yeah, I understand.
You're too much of a hipster to point it
I
out.
understand.
So,
Understood that
okay,
reference.
okay. So if you do the fusion dance, is it Jarek, or if you do the Pataras, is it Don?
Don. Well, both are equally lame.
Okay, but is it D-O-H-N or D-A-U-N?
D-A-U. No, because that would be Down.
Down.
Yeah. Down, as like how Schwarzenegger was pronouncing it.
Put that cookie down.
This takes me back, though, because I know we did this game a very fucking long time
It was
ago.
one of the first, earliest things we did, yeah.
Right. And I remember not giving a shit about doing the revisit because Klonoa bores me.
I'm not alone in the universe.
Because I remember the last time we did a commentary of Klonoa was Klonoa 2, right? That was the
Yes.
PS2 game? And I was in tears. Make it stop. Go away.
I mean, I
Klonoa-
get it, because it's basically the same kind of vibe that a Dark Matter Trilogy Kirby game has, and you have bad taste, so, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's fine. It's fine. It's. I should probably reiterate that Klonoa is one of those games that it's just infinitely better to play than watch four numbnuts do a commentary over. Because fuck, man, I think it's just a little too generic for my liking to really talk about anything that we haven't already covered in multiple aspects in different platformers throughout our years of doing this.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I always liked about Klonoa over all of them is I always did admire his look. Like, I love the hat. I love the long ears. You know, I just like the general vibe I get from Klonoa's character design. But everything else is, like, very fucking rudimentary.
I mean, we'll see if that Bamco poll question thingy actually bears fruit.
Which poll question thingy?
They basically on Twitter said, either said or just asked how many people would still be interested in Klonoa. So it's like, they usually don't ask that unless they have something on some level planned.
I mean, they've been doing these kind of ports of different things on modern consoles. There's one for Mr. Driller. There's one for Katamari Damacy, which are also franchises that Namco's done that they really haven't touched.
I think they also did the dot hack sequel port. Oddly, just the sequel, not the original.
Yeah,
which
but
is
it's
weird.
kind of like when it comes to Bamco lately and their franchises, if it's not a Tales of game or Tekken, it really hasn't gotten a lot of attention. Or I suppose you can
yeah.
kind of count Pac-Man, but
It took
Pac-Man
us-
is like mostly just like arcade kind of ports, you
It
know,
took
like
us-
they'll port that on everything.
It took us freaking ages to get a Soul Calibur sequel, and like that series only ever really did any sort of poorly because like they themselves weren't giving it the attention that it needed. They released a game so close to Tag Tournament 2 that they couldn't really compete with themselves.
Yeah,
And
that
then-
yeah, because Soul Calibur kind of cannibalizes development time and energy with Tekken in many ways, because it takes a fighting game, if you want to support it long term with DLC and whatnot, takes a lot of dev time. So I can imagine it's like running two MMOs at the same time. Although now that I think about it, Square Enix runs two MMOs at the same time, and they seem to be doing fine. So
Well,
you
it
know.
doesn't take nearly as many people to run an older MMO like Final Fantasy XI, especially one that has.
Oh,
had
Final
all of
Fantasy
its
11's
content.
still on? I was talking about Dragon Quest 10 and Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think 11 is the de facto comparison.
You know, I
because
keep
11
I
did
keep
technically
forgetting
ban.
that Dragon Quest 10 is a thing.
It's
Possibly-
okay, so does Square Enix. sucks.
Possibly because they haven't released it over here yet, which
So,
probably makes it easier to run.
Did you heard about the live stream that they did where they announced a bunch of Dragon
Oh
Quest
yes,
games, right?
they're like they had it on a worldwide simulcast. So
Yeah.
of course they went into a section about Dragon Quest X, but of course they had to have a little asterisk text blurb on the side saying that there's no plans for a global release.
You can't have it.
And basically every Dragon Quest fan on the internet felt like they were getting kicked in the nuts.
Psych.
But, you know.
Welcome to Dragon Quest X, full of online MMORPG activities, and you can't come.
It's okay. We have Dragon Quest X at home. Dragon Quest X at home is Dragon Quest X offline, which looks only slightly better than Gen 4 remakes. But that's a different rant for a different day. Anyway, what were we talking about? Bamco? Oh yeah, I remember looking it up somewhat recently, and Bamco, most of the games that they've made recently have been like anime games. Like, hold on, let me pull up the lists on Wikipedia. So like, if we look at stuff that came out in the last 5 years, it's like Jump Force, One Piece, Robot Wars, Code Vein, Tokyo Ghoul.
You had the
They
Star
are
Wars.
Dragon
basically
Ball Z, One Punch Man, One Piece, Pirate Warriors, My Hero Academia, Sword Art Online, Fast and Furious
a lot of licensed anime
Crossroads.
property.
Okay, Fast and Furious is my favorite.
Whoa,
anime.
hold on. All right, it's kind of. I just got the image of Vin Diesel being a confirmed character for Fighter
I mean,
Z.
the Bandai side specifically, is more or less the anime toy industry in a nutshell. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I'm not
like
really surprised.
they can license whatever anime they want and make a game out of it. But yeah, it's like Digimon, Doraemon, the Doraemon Story of Seasons, Tokyo Ghoul. Like, there really has not been a lot of push to use their other franchises, which I think is a shame. Namco's got a surprisingly well-rounded roster, and I think there's a lot of things that you could do. Like, you could try a Pac-Man World 4. I think people would like that, especially considering that 3D platformers are a little bit on the rise again with stuff like Mario Odyssey, Hat in Time, etc. You could, I can't imagine it would take an awful lot of time to make a new Mr. Driller, because that's just like a puzzle game. Like, you could probably make that in 6 months. I could imagine. There's a lot of things that Bamco could do. Or
The thing about Bandai Namco is that while they have a fairly lucrative angle in the video game industry through certain franchises, they're not in a position where they really have to care too much about utilizing all of their franchises, because they have other revenue streams that are frankly more reliably profitable at less expense. So, it's just something that is a reality of dealing with a company like that. They don't really care about their B-listers very much. And Klonoa, unfortunately, has become a B-lister. Enough that they occasionally check to see if there's interest in it, but not so much that they're really compelled to follow through. I mean, most of the interest in Klonoa comes from video series like this, where, nerds like us go play this old game and wax lyrical about how old it is.
That's so that's actually one of the things that I think about in terms of Nintendo, actually, a lot, because Nintendo also has a lot of B-list games, like F-Zero, Star Fox, stuff like that. And I always think about it as your core fan base is effectively free marketing for your game, and they'll buy anything you put out, even if it's usually not great. So it's worth it to keep them happy every once in a while, which is why I think that a lot of the time companies like this should think about how much money it takes to make some of these B-list games just to make them happy, and see if it's a good ROI in that case. That's why I find that we probably don't get a lot of games like I think one of the reasons we don't get a new F-Zero, for example, is that even though it's a small audience, I would imagine it would be a fairly expensive game to make. Because, if it's a racing game with high speed, it would want to have good performance and good graphics. And you would need an online infrastructure if you were making it in the modern day. So for a fairly, quote-unquote, small demographic, it's pretty expensive. Versus, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, something like a Wario Land game probably wouldn't be as expensive to make, but it would
I'm
still
not so,
fill.
I'm not so sure about. I'm not so sure about that because ultimately you're only making. How much of a racing game you want to do, it's only about like 20 to 25 environments you have to make, and the outside area is never ever really solid beyond you fall off so you crash.
Yeah,
sort of thing. So
I mean,
it's,
it would
making an F-Zero is not as expensive as something like Breath of the Wild is, and Breath of the Wild is successful as it is for Zelda. Zelda is not Mario tier sales, so
yeah. I'm also thinking about stuff like Star Fox Zero, for example. That couldn't have been a cheap game to make, considering that it's one of the very few games that tries to push the Wii U.
That was
It did push the Wii U.
That was Miyamoto. That was more to do with Miyamoto than anything.
Yeah, but like
because gimmicky controller.
Yeah, but it's just like
yay.
think about that game. Like that game graphically pretty strong, and it's like a 4-hour game that people generally didn't like. So, I guess that's just one of the things where I do. I think that just to bring it back to Klonoa, like I don't imagine that a modern day Klonoa would be that expensive to make. Like, this is kind of a game that would be pushed more on art style than on like graphical fidelity. Like, you could probably get by making it look pretty without necessarily having to go all in on the tech. And then like a 6 to 8 hour platformer probably also isn't. Again, I'm not trying to undermine the work that people would put into it, but it's certainly.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think there's too many variables to quantify to say how much it would and how much it wouldn't be. I know next to nothing about video game budgeting and how much it goes into the process.
But it certainly would cost less than making like a new Tekken, for example.
It really.
I wouldn't know.
It really depends on what angle they decide to go with in terms of the graphics and length. Like, they could, like, in the current climate, it could be realistically seen that the smartest way to bring Klonoa back would be to do something akin to the Crash Bandicoot 4 approach, where there is indeed, like, a significant boost in length, a significant boost in content alongside that length, and, most strikingly in Crash 4's case, a hell of a lot of graphical variety from level to level, which
if that was the case, then yeah, it probably would be a pretty expensive game to make.
It would be expensive, large in data size, that kind of thing. And I would argue that is the most realistic way to expect a new Klonoa game to stick. And if you're going to bring back a franchise like this that's been dormant for so long, you really want it to stick. What I would argue...
That said, though, how long ago was the last Klonoa game?
This game.
The Wii.
This game, and this is the Wii game, right?
Yes, this is over 10 years old, so...
This is over... Oh, yeah, because I remember... Because this in itself was a remake of a PS1 game, wasn't it?
This game came out like 2007, 2008.
They could, if they wanted to test the waters / get interest flowing again for a possible sequel, it would be a good idea to at least remaster the Wii Klonoa game and the PS2 sequel.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's like if they were to ever bring Klonoa back, you either get the foundation going with a remaster, or the sequel in quotes would be super safe. Make sure
that's
that's
online
stable.
with what they've been doing too with Katamari and stuff like that.
Upres 1,
Right.
Upres 1 and 2, and 2 has never been re-released from an Irish console, so that's still kind of an obscure
Oh, really?
PS2 game to get.
It would also be nice because
what
this version of Klonoa is like something like $80 or whatever. Hold on a moment. We looked this up when we did it with Derek, but I'm gonna look it up again
Before I
because
ate
that
him.
was like 2 months ago. Let's see. Oh, damn. Okay. Lowest price brand new, $950. Okay. Pre-owned with just the disc.
What are you dreaming?
Yes. It's
Wow,
Klonoa.
suddenly Haunting Ground isn't looking so expensive anymore.
A used copy is like $120, $150. So.
Damn.
Good God! All right, so we are overdue for a Klonoa collection, is what you're
I
telling
mean,
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
You could do that. Yeah.
like again, I don't know how expensive it would be to remaster this, but it would.
Well, this is a
certainly
Wii
be
game,
nice.
so it wouldn't be. It's a Wii game without any gimmicky motion controls, so it's really all you have to do is just upscale it to 720.
Yeah, I think-
on some
It all
hardware.
depends if they still have the source
the
code.
difficulty might be in the PS2 version because that was a bit more of a specific console.
Honestly, John, even if Namco doesn't have it, Nintendo might. One of the reasons why I think it was the
Mana remix.
the Secret of Mana collection is Nintendo exclusive is because Square lost the
Yeah.
source code to Secret of Mana,
As they were wont to
and
do.
Nintendo still had it, so they were like, "Well, aren't
Yeah.
you in a predicament here?"
Okay.
Now I am the secret of mana.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just like because it was on like Nintendo systems or something.
I think Nintendo is like the absolute paragon of holding on the source code from shit as early as I want to say the 70s or the 80s.
And I mean, it's a
Something
smart
close to that,
idea. Like,
yeah.
you know,
Like they still have a ton of fucking shit in its original identity. It's really
see,
amazing.
Nintendo does care about game preservation.
Just not for us.
Like, it's so weird. Like, different companies have different policies on that stuff. Like, yeah, BioWare kept all of Mass Effect, but then the DLC that they outsourced to another company, that company, well, they had the source code, but the source code was corrupt somehow, which points to some possible bad practices in terms of data transfer. So that DLC just died from every re-release from the PS3 on up. But the rest of the game is fine because BioWare has it. And, like, you'd think that after we lost so many television shows over the decades, companies would be more careful about this shit.
I
But
mean,
they're-
like with TV shows, you know, we had lost so many movies in the 30s
I
and
mean-
40s.
80%, at least 80% of movies released before 1940 or so are lost.
And
I
think
mean-
about like how many books have been lost, you know, due to book burnings or just, you know, time. You know, like the people talk about the Library of Alexandria, how much.
Well-
An age for the internet, you mean? Yeah.
Well, books are relatively easy to preserve because, like, yeah, a lot of, like, older stuff, yeah, a lot of that might have been lost because copying methods weren't as refined back then. But, like, anything more recent than, I want to say, the
The
1600s.
printing press, probably. Yeah.
Well, no,
anything-
because there still are book burnings and stuff like that. though.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
that was a
but
big thing
all
in
you-
Germany around World War II. Is a lot of stuff got
But-
burned and lost forever.
Yeah, but all you need is one copy nowadays, and someone can type it up and store it on a computer, and text is like one of the least space-intensive things in the universe. So,
That's right. The whole universe.
once you've gotten one copy of something and copied it over, it's preserved, and it's going to be pretty hard to get rid of it from that point on. So we've hit a kind of, we've long since hit a point where books are in no more danger. But yeah, wow, this tangent went in some odd directions.
Okay, time
to
to
normal, the
turn
next
John
part.
back into Derek. Ready? Blue.
Quick, sell the joke, John. You have to imitate Derek's voice now.